Rococo art. Elegance and ornamental style in 18th century France. Written by Haya Vent, narrated by Kara Miller. Chapter 1. The Origins of Rococo Art. Rococo art emerged in early 18th century France as a response to the grandeur and formality of the Baroque period. Rooted in the social and cultural shifts of the time, it reflected the changing tastes of the aristocracy, who sought a lighter, more intimate, and decorative style. Unlike the dramatic intensity of Baroque art, Rococo emphasized elegance, playfulness, and ornamental beauty, often incorporating pastel colors, asymmetry, and intricate detailing. The transition from Baroque to Rococo can be traced to the late reign of Louis XIV, when rigid artistic traditions began to loosen. The Sun King's death in 1715 marked a shift in French society, as the aristocracy moved away from the formality of Versailles to more private residences in Paris. These hôtels particuliers, or townhouses, became centers of social life where salons and gatherings fostered a new aesthetic sensibility. Artists and designers responded to this shift by creating a style that complemented the intimate and luxurious interiors of these spaces. One of the earliest figures associated with Rococo was Jean-Antoine Watteau, whose paintings captured the emerging themes of leisure, romance, and escapism. His fête galante genre, depicting aristocrats in idyllic, dreamlike settings, epitomized the transition from Baroque's grandeur to Rococo's more delicate charm. Watteau's work, particularly The Pilgrimage to Cythera, 1717, set the tone for the movement, blending fantasy with refined elegance. Cultural and political changes also played a crucial role in shaping Rococo art. The Regency period, 1715 to 1723, during which Philippe II, Duke of Orleans, ruled as regent for the young Louis XIV, brought a more relaxed and pleasure-seeking atmosphere. The rigid ceremonial life of Louis XIV gave way to a society that valued wit, beauty, and entertainment. Artists, architects, and craftsmen catered to this shift, incorporating playful themes, floral motifs, and sensual imagery into their work. Rococo's development was further influenced by the economic prosperity and expanding patronage of the arts. The growing wealth of the bourgeoisie allowed for a wider audience to appreciate and commission Rococo-inspired works, extending the style beyond royal and aristocratic circles. The influence of classical mythology, pastoral themes, and Eastern exoticism, seen in chinoiserie designs, reflected the era's fascination with fantasy and refinement. By the 1730s, Rococo had firmly established itself as the dominant artistic style in France, permeating painting, sculpture, architecture, and interior design. It was a movement that celebrated beauty, indulgence, and the ephemeral joys of life, offering a stark contrast to the solemnity of previous artistic traditions. The transition from Baroque to Rococo. The transition from Baroque to Rococo was a gradual artistic evolution driven by social, political, and cultural shifts in early 18th century France. While both styles shared a love for ornamentation and grandeur, Rococo moved away from the dramatic intensity and heavy symbolism of Baroque in favor of a lighter, more playful aesthetic. This change reflected the desires of the French aristocracy, who sought art that complemented their more intimate and leisurely lifestyles. Baroque art, which dominated the 17th century, was characterized by grandeur, emotional depth, and dramatic contrasts of light and shadow. Artists like Caravaggio, Peter Paul Rubens, and Nicolas Singh created works that conveyed power, religious fervor, and movement, often intended to inspire awe. The architecture of the period, seen in the opulent design of Versailles, emphasized symmetry, monumental scale, and elaborate ornamentation, reinforcing the absolute authority of Louis XIV. However, as the king's reign ended in 1715, a cultural shift began to take place, paving the way for a more refined and intimate artistic style. The Regency period, 1715 to 1723, was instrumental in this transformation. With Louis XIV's death, the French aristocracy abandoned the strict formalities of court life and relocated from Versailles to private Parisian townhouses, or l'hôtel particulier. These new settings required a different aesthetic, one that favored delicate ornamentation, pastel hues, and asymmetrical designs over the heavy grandeur of Baroque. Interiors became richly decorated with curved moldings, gilded mirrors, and soft color palettes, creating a sense of warmth and elegance that defined early Rococo. In painting, Jean-Antoine Watteau played a crucial role in bridging the two styles. His fête galante genre, which depicted aristocrats in romantic and idyllic outdoor settings, introduced a new sense of lightness and fantasy. Works like The Pilgrimage to Cythera, 1717, exemplified the shift away from Baroque's religious and historical themes toward more intimate, playful subjects. Watteau's brushwork and pastel color schemes set the foundation for artists such as François Boucher and Jean-Honoré Fragonard, who would fully embrace the Rococo style. The transition was also evident in sculpture, furniture, and decorative arts. Baroque's grand, heroic sculptures gave way to smaller, more whimsical pieces featuring cherubs, floral motifs, and mythological figures. Furniture designs became more elegant and curved, moving away from the heavy, imposing structures of the Baroque era. By the 1730s, Rococo had firmly established itself as the leading artistic movement in France, offering a stark contrast to its Baroque predecessor. While Baroque was about power and grandeur, Rococo celebrated leisure, romance, and the pursuit of pleasure, marking a distinct shift in European artistic sensibilities. Cultural and political influences. The emergence of Rococo art in early 18th century France was deeply intertwined with the cultural and political landscape of the time. The transition from the grandiosity of the Baroque era to the lightness and elegance of Rococo was not just an artistic shift, but also a reflection of changing societal values, court life, and the evolving role of the aristocracy. The movement was shaped by the political climate following the death of Louis XIV, the growing influence of the French elite, and the rise of salon culture, all of which contributed to the development of a style that emphasized pleasure, beauty, and intimacy. The death of Louis XIV in 1715 marked the end of an era dominated by strict court etiquette, rigid artistic conventions, and the overwhelming grandeur of Versailles. His successor, the young Louis XIV, was too young to rule, leading to the Regency period, 1715 to 1723, under the governance of Philippe II, Duke of Orléans. This period was characterized by a relaxation of the authoritarian rule that had defined the previous decades. The aristocracy, no longer confined to the rigid formalities of court life, moved back to their Parisian townhouses, where they hosted intellectual salons, social gatherings, and artistic patronage. This shift encouraged a new artistic sensibility, one that embraced elegance, sensuality, and lighthearted themes, rather than the dramatic intensity of Baroque art. One of the defining cultural influences on Rococo was the rise of salon culture. These gatherings, hosted by influential women such as Madame de Pompadour, the official mistress of Louis XIV, became centers of intellectual exchange, literature, and artistic patronage. Madame de Pompadour herself was a major supporter of Rococo artists, commissioning works that celebrated femininity, romance, and refined aesthetics. The intimate, decorative style of Rococo reflected the atmosphere of these salons, where wit, charm, and beauty were highly valued. Another key influence was the changing role of the aristocracy. Unlike the Baroque era, where art served as a means of glorifying absolute monarchy and religious devotion, Rococo art was secular, personal, and indulgent. It depicted scenes of aristocratic leisure, courtship, and fantasy, reinforcing the values of the nobility who sought to escape political tensions through art and entertainment. Themes of love, playfulness, and mythology became prevalent, emphasizing the desire for pleasure and refinement. Additionally, France's increasing economic prosperity and global trade introduced new artistic inspirations. The fascination with chinoiserie, a European interpretation of Chinese and East Asian art, brought exotic elements into Rococo design, influencing patterns in furniture, textiles, and porcelain. This global influence further enriched Rococo's decorative appeal, making it a symbol of aristocratic taste and sophistication. By the mid-18th century, Rococo had become synonymous with the elite culture of France, embodying the political ease and cultural indulgence of Louis XV's reign. However, this same association with aristocratic excess would eventually contribute to its decline, as shifting political ideologies and the rise of neoclassicism sought to replace its frivolity with a return to classical order. The role of the French aristocracy. The French aristocracy played a central role in the development and popularization of Rococo art, shaping its themes, aesthetics, and purpose. As the primary patrons of this decorative and indulgent style, the nobility sought an art form that reflected their refined tastes, leisurely lifestyles, and desire for escapism. Rococo art flourished in the intimate settings of aristocratic salons, townhouses, and private chambers, moving away from the grandeur and solemnity of Baroque art, which had previously been tied to the power and authority of the monarchy. During the reign of Louis XIV, art and architecture were used as tools of political power, reinforcing the divine right of kings and the absolute authority of the monarchy. The vast halls of Versailles, adorned with Baroque splendor, served as a stage for royal spectacle, ensuring that the nobility remained under the king's watchful eye. However, with the death of Louis XIV in 1715, the aristocracy gained newfound freedom, leaving Versailles and returning to Paris, where they cultivated a more intimate and personal way of life. This shift directly influenced the emergence of Rococo, as nobles sought art that was lighter, more playful, and suited to the elegant interiors of their private residences. Parisian hôtels particuliers, or aristocratic townhouses, became the heart of Rococo culture. The elaborate but delicate interior designs, featuring curved moldings, gilded stucco, and pastel color palettes, reflected the aristocracy's preference for comfort and elegance over Baroque's imposing grandeur. In these spaces, nobles hosted salons, gatherings where intellectuals, artists, and courtiers engaged in discussions of philosophy, literature, and the arts. These salons, often presided over by influential women such as Madame de Pompadour, fostered an environment where Rococo flourished as an art form that celebrated sensuality, wit, and charm. The themes of Rococo painting and decorative arts reflected the aristocracy's values and interests. Scenes of fête galante, a genre pioneered by Jean-Antoine Watteau, depicted aristocrats engaged in romantic encounters, musical performances, and leisurely strolls through idyllic landscapes. François Boucher and Jean-Honoré Fragonard continued this tradition with paintings that emphasized themes of love, mythology, and frivolity. Unlike the grand historical and religious narratives of Baroque, Rococo art was deeply personal, catering to the aristocracy's pursuit of beauty, pleasure, and amusement. However, this emphasis on indulgence and luxury also contributed to the eventual decline of Rococo. As growing economic and social unrest spread throughout France, critics began to associate the style with aristocratic excess and detachment from reality. By the late 18th century, the rise of neoclassicism, with its emphasis on order, reason, and civic virtue, signaled the end of Rococo's dominance. Yet, for much of Louis XV's reign, the French aristocracy remained the driving force behind one of the most elegant and decorative movements in European art history. Early pioneers of Rococo style. The emergence of Rococo in early 18th century France was shaped by a group of influential artists who pioneered its signature, lightness, elegance, and ornamental beauty. These artists broke away from the grandeur of Baroque, favoring a more intimate and playful aesthetic that reflected the changing tastes of the aristocracy. Among the key figures who laid the foundation for Rococo were Jean-Antoine Watteau, François Boucher, and Jean-Honoré Fragonard, each of whom contributed distinct elements that defined the movement. Jean-Antoine Watteau is often regarded as the father of Rococo painting, introducing a new artistic genre known as fête galante. His work blended elements of Baroque with a softer, more whimsical approach, portraying aristocrats in dreamy, idyllic landscapes. Unlike the formal, grand narratives of the previous era, Watteau's paintings emphasized romance, leisure, and the fleeting pleasures of life. One of his most celebrated works, The Pilgrimage to Cythera, 1717, depicts elegantly dressed couples journeying to a mythical island associated with love and desire. With its delicate brushwork, pastel hues, and fluid composition, the painting became a defining example of Rococo's emphasis on charm and fantasy. Watteau's work set the stage for the more decorative and sensual expressions of Rococo that would follow. Building upon Watteau's innovations, François Boucher became one of the most prominent painters of the Rococo period. His style was highly decorative, theatrical, and infused with a sense of opulence, often depicting mythological scenes filled with sensuous figures, lavish fabrics, and soft lighting. Boucher's paintings, such as Diana resting after her bath and The Toilet of Venus, showcased a level of eroticism that aligned with the aristocracy's fascination with beauty and indulgence. As the favored artist of Madame de Pompadour, the influential mistress of Louis XVIII, Boucher's work dominated court culture, appearing in palace decorations, tapestries, and private collections. His ability to blend mythology with an unmistakable sensuality helped establish Rococo as the defining style of the era. Jean-Honoré Fragonard, a later figure in Rococo's evolution, took the movement's playfulness and romance to its peak. His paintings, filled with dynamic compositions and vibrant energy, captured themes of love, flirtation, and secret rendezvous. His most famous work, The Swing, 1767, epitomizes Rococo's spirit, depicting a young woman in a billowing dress being pushed on a swing while her lover gazes up at her from below. The painting's pastel tones, soft lighting, and sense of movement reflect the carefree and sensual nature of Rococo art, making it one of the most recognizable masterpieces of the period. Together, Watteau, Boucher, and Fragonard shaped Rococo's visual identity, transforming it into a style that celebrated fantasy, intimacy, and decorative beauty. Their work not only defined the movement, but also influenced generations of artists, ensuring Rococo's place as a major artistic force in 18th century France. Chapter 2: Characteristics of Rococo Art. Rococo art is defined by its lightness, elegance, and intricate ornamentation, distinguishing it from the grandeur and drama of Baroque. Emerging in early 18th century France, it embraced asymmetry, soft color palettes, and themes of romance, leisure, and fantasy. Rococo was not just an artistic movement, but a reflection of aristocratic refinement, favoring delicate beauty and playful compositions over the intense emotion and heavy symbolism of the previous era. One of the defining characteristics of Rococo is its emphasis on ornamentation and decorative detail. Unlike Baroque's structured compositions and strong contrasts, Rococo embraced flowing curves, intricate scrollwork, and floral motifs. The movement's design elements extended beyond painting into architecture, furniture, and interior decor, where gilded moldings, pastel walls, and elaborately carved furniture created an atmosphere of luxury and refinement. In interior spaces, Rococo manifested in the form of delicate stucco work, elaborate chandeliers, and soft, rounded forms that enhanced the intimate and inviting ambiance of aristocratic salons. Color played a significant role in Rococo's aesthetic, with artists favoring soft pastels, pale blues, creamy whites, and gentle pinks over the deep, dramatic tones of Baroque. These lighter hues, often accompanied by gold accents, contributed to the movement's overall sense of airiness and charm. In painting, the use of soft, blended brushstrokes and delicate shading created a dreamlike effect, further enhancing the themes of romance and fantasy. Artists like François Boucher and Jean-Honoré Fragonard mastered this approach, using color and light to evoke sensuality and movement within their compositions. Another key feature of Rococo is its asymmetry and fluidity, which set it apart from the rigid structures of earlier artistic styles. Curved lines, organic shapes, and dynamic compositions replaced the strict symmetry of Baroque, creating a sense of spontaneity and natural grace. This fluidity is especially evident in Rococo's portrayal of figures, which often appear in motion, engaged in flirtation, leisure, or moments of intimacy. Paintings frequently depicted elegantly dressed aristocrats in pastoral settings, engaged in games, music, or courtship, reinforcing the movement's celebration of beauty and pleasure. Thematic elements in Rococo art also reflected the values of the aristocracy. Love, mythology, and playfulness were central to the movement, with artists often depicting scenes of romantic encounters, mythological deities, or playful cherubs. Unlike the grand religious or historical narratives of Baroque, Rococo art was lighthearted and indulgent, designed to entertain and enchant rather than inspire awe. This focus on pleasure and escapism made Rococo an ideal style for the aristocracy, who sought art that complemented their leisurely, refined way of life. As a whole, Rococo was an art of refinement, grace, and fantasy. Its emphasis on fluidity, color, and ornamentation made it a defining aesthetic of 18th century France, capturing the spirit of an era that valued beauty, romance, and the pursuit of pleasure. Lightness, elegance, and ornamentation. Rococo art is best known for its lightness, elegance, and highly decorative nature, all of which set it apart from the more dramatic and imposing Baroque style. Emerging in early 18th century France, it embraced a softer, more intimate approach to art and design, reflecting the refined tastes of the aristocracy. Every aspect of Rococo, from painting and sculpture to architecture and furniture, emphasized grace, movement, and intricate ornamentation, creating a world that celebrated beauty and pleasure. One of the most defining characteristics of Rococo art is its sense of lightness. Unlike the heavy, formal compositions of Baroque, Rococo paintings and decorative arts favored soft curves, delicate brushstrokes, and airy compositions. Artists achieved this effect through the use of pastel colors, gentle shading, and luminous lighting, which created a dreamlike quality. Scenes often depicted aristocrats in leisurely pursuits, floating figures, and idyllic landscapes that felt weightless and ethereal. Jean-Antoine Watteau, one of Rococo's pioneers, mastered this effect in his Fête Galante paintings, where elegant figures appeared to move effortlessly within soft, natural surroundings. Elegance was another hallmark of Rococo, reflected in both subject matter and artistic technique. Figures in Rococo paintings were often portrayed in elaborate flowing garments, with refined poses and graceful gestures that conveyed a sense of effortless sophistication. This elegance extended beyond painting into interior design, where curving staircases, gilded mirrors, and silk-upholstered furniture filled aristocratic townhouses. Everything about Rococo was designed to be pleasing to the eye, emphasizing comfort, luxury, and refined aesthetics rather than grandeur or solemnity. François Boucher and Jean-Honoré Fragonard took this elegance further, painting sensual and romantic themes with a light, playful touch that resonated with the aristocratic patrons of their time. Ornamentation played a crucial role in defining Rococo's unique style. Inspired by nature, Rococo designs were filled with swirling patterns, floral motifs, and asymmetrical curves that created a sense of movement and spontaneity. This decorative richness extended to every form of art, from furniture and tapestries to ceiling frescoes and porcelain. Architectural elements such as stucco moldings and carved wood panels featured intricate scrollwork and shell motifs, reinforcing Rococo's love for organic, flowing shapes. Even everyday objects, like teacups and writing desks, were adorned with delicate embellishments, turning functional items into works of art. Together, these elements of lightness, elegance, and ornamentation defined Rococo as an art form that celebrated beauty, refinement, and leisure. Unlike the solemnity of previous artistic movements, Rococo was meant to enchant and delight, creating a visual language that captured the spirit of an aristocracy devoted to pleasure and sophistication. Asymmetry and natural forms. One of the most distinctive features of Rococo art is its embrace of asymmetry and natural forms, which set it apart from the rigid symmetry and structured compositions of the Baroque era. This shift reflected a broader cultural movement away from the grandeur and formality of the previous century, favoring instead a more organic, playful, and spontaneous aesthetic. Rococo artists and designers drew inspiration from nature, incorporating flowing lines, irregular shapes, and dynamic movement into their work, creating a style that felt light, elegant, and effortlessly beautiful. Asymmetry became a defining characteristic of Rococo, particularly in interior design, furniture, and decorative arts. Unlike Baroque's strict balance and heavy ornamentation, Rococo favored curving forms, irregular patterns, and asymmetrical compositions that mimic the unpredictability of nature. This can be seen in the intricate designs of stucco moldings, mirrors, and gilded frames, where floral motifs, swirling acanthus leaves, and delicate scrollwork appear to grow and expand organically rather than follow a rigid structure. Even architectural elements, such as doorways and ceiling frescoes, featured undulating lines and irregular contours, creating a sense of movement and lightness. Natural forms played an equally important role in Rococo's aesthetic. Inspired by the natural world, artists and craftsmen incorporated elements such as flowers, vines, seashells, and delicate foliage into their work, emphasizing a sense of liveliness and spontaneity. This influence extended beyond painting and sculpture to furniture design, where legs of chairs and tables curved gracefully like vines, and surfaces were adorned with delicate floral inlays. Rococo's fascination with organic shapes also extended to chinoiserie, a European interpretation of Chinese and East Asian decorative styles that featured exotic landscapes, birds, and flowing water motifs, further reinforcing the movement's love for nature-inspired designs. In painting, asymmetry and natural forms were used to create dynamic and engaging compositions. Artists like Jean-Antoine Watteau, François Boucher, and Jean-Honoré Fragonard masterfully employed diagonal lines, sweeping curves, and irregular groupings of figures to enhance the sense of movement and spontaneity. Rather than adhering to strict perspective or balanced arrangements, Rococo paintings often had a sense of fluidity and motion, as seen in Fragonard's The Swing, where the central figure appears to be caught mid-air, surrounded by swirling foliage and soft dappled light. Ultimately, the use of asymmetry and natural forms in Rococo art reflected the movement's emphasis on grace, playfulness, and intimacy. By breaking free from the constraints of symmetry and embracing the beauty of nature, Rococo artists created a style that felt organic, lively, and enchanting, perfectly capturing the refined yet carefree spirit of 18th century French aristocratic life. The use of pastel colors and soft lighting. A defining characteristic of Rococo art is its use of pastel colors and soft lighting, which helped create an atmosphere of elegance, intimacy, and lightheartedness. In contrast to the bold contrasts and dramatic shadows of the Baroque period, Rococo embraced a delicate, airy aesthetic, using subtle tones and gentle illumination to enhance its themes of romance, leisure, and beauty. These visual elements played a crucial role in shaping the movement's distinctive charm and refinement, making Rococo one of the most visually pleasing styles of the 18th century. Pastel colors became the preferred palette of Rococo artists, replacing the deep, rich hues that had dominated the previous era. Soft pinks, powdery blues, creamy whites, pale greens, and delicate yellows were used to create a sense of warmth, femininity, and grace. These colors were often blended seamlessly with gold accents, further enhancing the luxurious yet lighthearted feel of Rococo interiors, paintings, and decorative arts. This pastel palette was particularly well suited to the themes of the period, as it reflected the aristocracy's preference for an idealized world of love, beauty, and refinement. In painting, artists such as François Boucher, Jean-Honoré Fragonard, and Jean-Antoine Watteau used pastels to create dreamlike compositions filled with softness and sensuality. Their works often depicted mythological figures, aristocratic lovers, or pastoral scenes bathed in a gentle glow, emphasizing the lighthearted and romantic spirit of Rococo. Fragonard's The Swing is a prime example, where soft pinks and lush greens create an ethereal quality that enhances the playfulness of the scene. Similarly, Boucher's depictions of Venus and other mythological subjects showcase delicate skin tones and flowing fabrics, all rendered in feather-light brushstrokes that further emphasized Rococo's elegance. Soft lighting played an equally significant role in shaping Rococo's aesthetic. Unlike the dramatic chiaroscuro effects of Baroque, which relied on strong contrasts between light and shadow, Rococo employed diffused, naturalistic lighting to create a gentle, glowing effect. This technique gave paintings a sense of warmth and intimacy, drawing viewers into private, idyllic worlds where figures appeared bathed in a golden or rosy light. Light was often used to highlight the beauty of silk fabrics, delicate textures, and porcelain-like skin, reinforcing Rococo's emphasis on refinement and grace. Beyond painting, pastel colors and soft lighting extended to interior design, where rooms were adorned with pale-colored walls, gilded moldings, and large windows that allowed natural light to flood elegant spaces. These interiors reflected the movement's desire to create environments that felt airy, inviting, and enchanting, mirroring the carefree and pleasurable lifestyle of the French aristocracy. Through its mastery of color and light, Rococo art achieved an atmosphere of effortless beauty and refinement. The use of pastel tones and soft illumination not only defined the movement's visual identity, but also reinforced its themes of romance, leisure, and aristocratic luxury, making it one of the most graceful and captivating styles in European art history. Themes of love, leisure, and fantasy. Rococo art is deeply rooted in themes of love, leisure, and fantasy, reflecting the desires and lifestyle of the French aristocracy during the 18th century. This period, marked by political stability and growing wealth, gave the elite a unique freedom to indulge in pleasures of the mind and body, and the art that flourished during this time mirrored those values. Unlike the grand religious or historical narratives of earlier periods, Rococo focused on more personal and whimsical subjects, emphasizing the lighthearted and ephemeral joys of life. Love was perhaps the most prominent theme in Rococo, often portrayed through tender, playful, and romantic interactions between figures. Artists like François Boucher and Jean-Honoré Fragonard created intimate depictions of lovers with soft, sensuous brushwork and pastel colors that imbued their subjects with an air of romantic fantasy. Boucher's The Rape of Europa and Fragonard's The Swing are prime examples of this, where love is depicted in its most idealized and playful form, often accompanied by mythological references or idyllic settings. The portrayal of lovers as carefree, flirtatious, and absorbed in moments of personal pleasure was central to Rococo's appeal, reflecting the aristocracy's desire to escape the rigidity of courtly life and experience love as a private, emotional pursuit. Alongside love, leisure was a key theme that defined Rococo's visual language. Paintings often featured aristocrats engaged in leisurely activities, such as music, dancing, and outdoor strolls in lush gardens. These depictions of relaxation and enjoyment were intended to evoke a sense of ease and pleasure, reflecting the aristocracy's privilege and freedom from the everyday concerns of the working class. Fête galante, a genre popularized by Jean-Antoine Watteau, depicted scenes of outdoor gatherings and romantic escapades, often in secluded, idealized settings that seemed far removed from the hustle and bustle of urban life. Leisure in Rococo art was about creating an atmosphere where time seemed to slow down, where pleasure could be enjoyed without interruption, and where the idealized lifestyle of the nobility was put on display for all to admire. Finally, fantasy played a significant role in Rococo's themes. The movement often blurred the lines between reality and imagination, particularly through the use of mythological references, allegory, and dreamlike scenarios. Rococo artists frequently depicted mythological deities, such as Venus or Cupid, interacting with human figures in idealized landscapes, creating worlds where gods and mortals existed side by side in blissful harmony. These fantastical themes allowed artists to explore whimsical, playful scenes of beauty, sensuality, and escape from the mundane. The Rococo style encouraged fantasy not just in subject matter, but in the very design of spaces, where rooms were transformed into serene, dreamlike environments through ornate decorations and soft lighting. Through the themes of love, leisure, and fantasy, Rococo art offered a vision of a world devoted to beauty, pleasure, and the pursuit of personal joy, making it a reflection of the aristocracy's desire for escape, indulgence, and elegance during a time of relative peace and prosperity. Chapter 3: Rococo Painting and Its Masters. Rococo painting, which emerged in early 18th century France, was marked by its lightness, elegance, and a focus on themes of love, leisure, and fantasy. As the most prominent visual art form of the Rococo movement, painting played a central role in defining the style's aesthetic and cultural significance. The era's most celebrated painters, including Jean-Antoine Watteau, François Boucher, and Jean-Honoré Fragonard, helped shape Rococo's visual language, creating works that encapsulated the movement's whimsical and sensuous qualities. These artists elevated Rococo to its highest expression through their mastery of color, composition, and the rendering of delicate, intimate moments. Jean-Antoine Watteau, often regarded as the father of Rococo painting, was instrumental in introducing the genre of fête galante, a style that depicted scenes of aristocratic outdoor gatherings and flirtatious encounters. Watteau's use of soft, flowing lines, gentle lighting, and pastel tones gave his works a dreamlike, ethereal quality that became synonymous with the Rococo movement. His masterpiece, The Pilgrimage to Cythera, 1717, exemplifies these traits, with elegant figures in a romantic setting evoking a sense of romantic escapism. Watteau's approach to depicting the human form, with an emphasis on grace and fluidity, influenced countless Rococo painters who followed, establishing his legacy as a master of intimate and sensuous portrayals. François Boucher was another central figure in Rococo painting, known for his highly decorative and sensual works that often featured mythological themes. His art was characterized by its vibrant color palette, theatrical compositions, and exquisite attention to detail. Boucher was particularly renowned for his depictions of the goddess Venus, and his works often explored themes of beauty, sensuality, and romantic indulgence. His painting, The Toilet of Venus, 1751, is a prime example of his style, where Venus, surrounded by cherubs, is bathed in soft light and enveloped in lush fabrics. Boucher's ability to blend sensuality with mythological storytelling made him a favorite at the French court, particularly as the official painter of Madame de Pompadour, the mistress of Louis XV. Jean-Honoré Fragonard is perhaps the most exuberant of the Rococo masters, known for his playful, dynamic compositions and lively depictions of love and flirtation. His works are often filled with movement, light, and energy, capturing the carefree and hedonistic spirit of the time. In The Swing, 1767, Fragonard immortalized a moment of playful romanticism with a young woman swinging while her lover gazes up at her. The painting's vibrant pastels, flowing lines, and sense of spontaneity exemplify the Rococo ideal, making it one of the most iconic representations of the movement's charm and fantasy. Together, Watteau, Boucher, and Fragonard formed the backbone of Rococo painting, each contributing a unique interpretation of the movement's themes of romance, leisure, and beauty. Their works not only defined the visual culture of the French aristocracy, but also set the stage for the development of Rococo as a lasting and influential style in European art history. Antoine Watteau and the Fête Galante. Jean-Antoine Watteau is widely considered one of the most influential figures in Rococo painting, and his development of the genre Fête Galante stands as one of his most significant contributions to the art world. Born in 1684, Watteau brought a new, more intimate sensibility to French art, which resonated deeply with the aristocracy's taste for lighthearted themes of love, flirtation, and leisure. The Fête Galante, A term coined to describe these scenes of aristocratic gatherings in idyllic outdoor settings became a hallmark of Watteau's work and an essential expression of Rococo's playful elegance. Watteau's fête galante paintings often depicted groups of elegantly dressed figures engaged in flirtatious conversations, amorous exchanges, and leisurely activities, typically set against lush, romantic landscapes. These gatherings took place in lush gardens, on wooded paths, or beside tranquil lakes, environments that were carefully staged to evoke a sense of harmony, beauty, and spontaneity. Rather than grand historical scenes or religious narratives, Watteau's subjects were personal and intimate, capturing fleeting moments of joy and flirtation. These works became a form of escapism, offering the viewer a glimpse into a world of idealized romance where time seemed to slow down, and all that mattered was the beauty of the moment. In one of his most famous paintings, The Pilgrimage to Cythera, 1717, Watteau's masterful use of color and light creates a dreamlike atmosphere that perfectly encapsulates the essence of the fête galante. The figures in the painting, along with the soft flowing lines and luminous palette, seem almost suspended in time, caught between the realms of reality and fantasy. The scene depicts lovers embarking on a pilgrimage to the mythical island of Cythera, the legendary birthplace of Venus, a symbol of love and beauty. The composition itself is filled with delicate movement, with figures caught in soft, natural gestures that suggest a fleeting, transient moment of romance. Watteau's innovation of the fête galante not only changed the direction of French painting, but also reflected a broader cultural shift within the aristocracy. The Rococo era was defined by a desire for pleasure, refinement, and personal indulgence, and Watteau's works reflected these values by offering a vision of society where beauty, love, and leisure reigned supreme. His unique approach to portraying graceful, intimate moments set him apart from his predecessors and influenced future generations of artists, making him one of the most celebrated masters of the Rococo style. François Boucher, Sensuality and Mythology. François Boucher, one of the most prominent painters of the Rococo period, is renowned for his sensual depictions of mythological themes, which perfectly encapsulated the luxurious and hedonistic spirit of 18th century France. Born in 1703, Boucher quickly rose to prominence with his mastery of delicate brushwork, vibrant colors, and a penchant for creating intimate, often eroticized scenes. His works are characterized by their playful, lighthearted atmosphere, which he imbued with themes of love, sensuality, and the idealization of beauty. Boucher's approach to painting was heavily influenced by his early exposure to both French classical traditions and the works of Italian Baroque artists, particularly Peter Paul Rubens, whose sensuality and vibrant use of color left a lasting mark on Boucher's style. However, unlike Rubens, whose figures were often full-bodied and robust, Boucher's works tended to be more delicate and refined, focusing on the ethereal qualities of beauty. His figures, typically drawn from mythology, were often depicted in soft poses, draped in flowing fabrics, and surrounded by lush landscapes, emphasizing grace, sensuality, and a sense of ease. One of Boucher's most famous themes was his portrayal of mythological subjects, particularly scenes involving the gods and goddesses of Greek and Roman mythology. The playful, seductive qualities of these myths provided Boucher with a rich source of inspiration for his works. He frequently depicted Venus, the goddess of love, in intimate or sensual settings, surrounded by cherubs or reclining on plush cushions, as seen in his painting The Toilet of Venus, 1751. Here, Venus is portrayed in a moment of personal grooming, bathed in soft light and surrounded by delicate drapery and flowers. The sensuousness of the scene is emphasized by Boucher's masterful handling of fabric and skin tones, creating a soft, almost dreamlike atmosphere. Boucher's mythological works not only reflected the Rococo taste for sensuality and beauty, but also aligned with the tastes of the French court, particularly that of Madame de Pompadour, the mistress of Louis XIII, who was one of Boucher's most significant patrons. His works were often commissioned for the royal court and aristocratic salons, where they were admired for their ability to evoke pleasure and indulgence. Through his sensual, mythologically inspired paintings, François Boucher played a pivotal role in defining Rococo's aesthetic, turning everyday moments of beauty and love into fantastical, mythic reveries. His works exemplified the movement's emphasis on lightness, grace, and sensual pleasure, securing his place as one of the most celebrated artists of his time. Jean-Honoré Fragonard, Playfulness and Romance. Jean-Honoré Fragonard, one of the most celebrated painters of the Rococo period, is known for his exuberant and playful approach to art, especially in his depictions of love, flirtation, and youthful exuberance. Born in 1732, Fragonard embraced the light, sensual nature of Rococo, capturing the carefree spirit of the French aristocracy through intimate, often whimsical scenes. His works are characterized by vibrant color palettes, dynamic compositions, and a sense of spontaneity, making him a key figure in defining the movement's visual language. Fragonard's signature style was marked by its playful eroticism, with his subjects often caught in flirtatious or romantic encounters. His scenes are infused with a sense of movement, lightness, and energy, capturing the fleeting moments of love and passion that define the Rococo ideal. One of his most famous works, The Swing, 1767, exemplifies this combination of playful romance and dynamic composition. In this iconic painting, a young woman is pushed on a swing while her lover watches from below, gazing up at her with adoration. The sense of movement is emphasized by the swaying swing, the fluttering fabrics, and the dynamic positioning of the figures. The use of soft pastels, combined with the light, almost playful atmosphere, perfectly captures the Rococo spirit of romantic amusement and spontaneity. Fragonard's art often featured themes of courtship and seduction, exploring the playful dynamics between lovers. His scenes typically depicted aristocratic couples in private, secluded settings, engaged in moments of flirtation, intimacy, and sometimes even playful deception. His works were designed to evoke the lightheartedness of romance, reflecting the nobility's desire to escape the more rigid constraints of court life and indulge in moments of pleasure and emotional connection. These paintings were often seen as visual escapism, offering a glimpse into a world where the complexities of social and political life were forgotten in favor of passion and leisure. Fragonard's works were not only popular among the aristocracy, but were also commissioned by influential patrons, including Madame du Barry, the mistress of Louis XV. The artist's ability to capture moments of personal indulgence and romantic fantasy made his works highly sought after, and his style had a significant impact on the development of Rococo painting. Through his playful and romantic depictions of love and flirtation, Fragonard captured the essence of Rococo's charm and elegance. His vibrant, dynamic compositions and emphasis on sensuality and lighthearted pleasure made him a master of the genre, solidifying his place as one of the most iconic artists of the 18th century. The influence of Venetian and Flemish art. The development of Rococo art was deeply influenced by earlier European traditions, particularly Venetian and Flemish painting. These two schools of art brought distinct stylistic elements that were integrated into the Rococo movement, enriching its sensibilities and shaping its visual language. Venetian artists, known for their vibrant use of color, light, and texture, and Flemish artists, famous for their meticulous attention to detail and intricate compositions, left lasting marks on the emerging Rococo style. Venetian art played a particularly significant role in shaping Rococo painting, especially in the works of François Boucher and Jean-Honoré Fragonard. The Venetian school, which flourished in the 16th and 17th centuries, was known for its bold use of color, sensuous brushwork, and innovative use of light. Artists such as Titian, Veronese, and Giorgione created works that emphasized rich color contrasts, soft and atmospheric lighting, and the portrayal of the human form with a sense of sensuality and vitality. These qualities were embraced by Rococo artists who often adopted vivid color palettes and sought to create paintings that felt soft and luminous. Boucher, for example, was directly influenced by Venetian masters, particularly Venetian colorism, and incorporated their ability to render textures, such as the softness of skin and fabrics, in his mythological and sensual compositions. Similarly, Flemish, with its emphasis on intricate detail, rich textures, and dynamic compositions, also left a significant mark on the Rococo style. Flemish painters like Peter Paul Rubens and Antoine van Dyck were known for their mastery of light and shadow, as well as their attention to the physicality and emotional depth of their subjects. Although Rococo artists preferred a lighter, more playful approach, the Flemish tradition of rich, textured surfaces and the dramatic use of chiaroscuro were essential in shaping the Rococo's treatment of sensuality, especially in scenes that depicted lush fabrics, soft flesh, and ornate settings. Rubens's work, with its fluidity and emphasis on movement, also inspired the dynamic compositions seen in many Rococo pieces. While Rococo painting ultimately departed from the dramatic intensity of Flemish Baroque art, it retained an appreciation for sumptuous textures and the vivid depiction of physical beauty. Both Venetian and Flemish traditions also influenced the concepts of light and atmosphere in Rococo. Venetian artists' use of light to create a sense of depth and ethereal beauty became central to the Rococo aesthetic, as seen in the soft, almost magical lighting of works by artists like Watteau and Fragonard. These painters combined the color and light techniques of the Venetians with the finesse and sensuality of Flemish art, resulting in a style that was rich in texture, filled with romance, and dreamlike in nature. Thus, the influence of Venetian and Flemish art helped shape Rococo into a style that blended vivid color, delicate texture, and sensual composition, producing works that embodied both the luxuriousness and elegance of the French aristocracy. Chapter 4: Rococo Architecture and Interior Design. Rococo architecture and interior design, like its painting and sculpture counterparts, was characterized by elegance, ornamentation, and a focus on lightness and grace. Emerging in the early 18th century, Rococo architecture represented a departure from the grandeur and solemnity of the Baroque style. Rather than monumental, heavy forms, Rococo structures and interiors emphasized delicacy, comfort, and the use of decorative elements that created an atmosphere of intimacy and refinement. This style mirrored the desires of the aristocracy for private, luxurious spaces that reflected their personal tastes, offering an escape from the formalities of court life. Rococo architecture was particularly prominent in the design of palaces, chateaux, and private homes, with key features such as curved lines, asymmetry, and intricate details dominating the aesthetic. While Baroque architecture often focused on imposing facades and awe-inspiring interiors, Rococo turned inward, creating spaces meant for personal enjoyment and conversation. Curved walls and ceilings replaced straight lines, giving interiors a fluid, organic quality that seemed to soften the space. Sculpted moldings, ornate stuccos, and gilded accents were applied to walls, ceilings, and furniture, creating a lavish atmosphere. The interiors of these buildings were designed to be visually harmonious, with every element, from furniture to wall decorations, contributing to an overall sense of opulence and comfort. The design of palaces and salons during the Rococo period emphasized intimacy and luxury. The salon, an elegant and often lavishly decorated room, became a central space for social gatherings and intellectual discussion, reflecting the aristocracy's desire to entertain and indulge. These rooms were often decorated with mirrors, intricate tapestries, and soft pastel-colored furnishings, creating a sense of lightness and refinement. The use of luxurious materials, such as silk, velvet, and porcelain, was common, further enhancing the sense of comfort and exclusivity. The use of natural motifs, such as flowers, vines, and shells, was also a hallmark of Rococo interior design. adding to the playful, organic quality of the style. Perhaps the most iconic example of Rococo architecture is the Hôtel de Soubise in Paris, designed by Germain Boffrand. The hotel's interior is a perfect example of Rococo's embrace of graceful curves, rich ornamentation, and harmonious design, with the rooms featuring delicate stucco work, intricate mirrors, and ceilings painted with soft, dreamy scenes. Another notable example is the Palace of Versailles, where the Hall of Mirrors exemplifies Rococo's opulence, with its grand chandeliers, gilded moldings, and extensive use of mirrors to create a sense of light and space. Rococo interior design was not just about aesthetic beauty, it was also about creating an experience. The intimate scale and refined decoration of the spaces were designed to foster relaxed gatherings, where aristocrats could enjoy music, conversation, and leisure in a luxurious, personal setting. Through its intricate decoration and emphasis on comfort and style, Rococo architecture and interior design left a lasting legacy, influencing European decor for years to come. The salon culture and private spaces. In 18th century France, the salon culture played a central role in the social life of the aristocracy, becoming a key feature of Rococo society. These intimate gatherings, usually held in lavishly decorated private rooms within grand palaces or mansions, were designed as spaces for conversation, intellectual exchange, and entertainment. The salon was a reflection of the Rococo ideals of elegance, grace, and refinement, offering a setting where the elite could engage in sophisticated dialogue away from the formality of the court. It also represented a shift from public, ceremonial events to more personal, relaxed gatherings, emphasizing the values of leisure and intimacy. The Rococo salon was often hosted by influential women, who were seen as the intellectual and social centerpieces of the gatherings. These women, such as Madame de Pompadour and Madame Geoffrin, played a crucial role in shaping French culture and politics, as salons became venues for philosophical debates, literary discussions, and artistic critique. The hostesses curated the guest lists, selecting prominent philosophers, writers, artists, and political figures to partake in these intellectual exchanges. The salon, therefore, became an important social institution where ideas were exchanged and the arts were patronized. The design and decoration of these private spaces reflected the same ideals of comfort and luxury that were central to Rococo art and architecture. Rooms were designed to be both functional and beautiful, with soft, pastel-colored walls, elaborate stucco work, and gilded mirrors, enhancing the sense of light and openness. Furniture was light and comfortable, with luxurious fabrics like silk and velvet, allowing guests to relax and converse at ease. Rococo furniture often featured curved lines and ornate details, creating an atmosphere of warmth and intimacy. These private spaces were also often filled with artworks and decorative objects that reflected the tastes and intellectual pursuits of the host. Paintings, sculptures, and porcelain items were carefully chosen to complement the room's aesthetic and provide conversation pieces. The art of conversation was highly valued in these salons, where witty remarks, philosophical discussions, and the latest cultural trends were shared. The rise of the salon culture marked a new era in the way people interacted with each other, blending intellectual engagement with the pleasures of luxury and leisure. These salons allowed for the development of ideas that influenced not only French society, but also European culture. At the same time, they were spaces where personal enjoyment, the arts, and the pursuit of refinement coexisted, making them essential to the identity of the Rococo period. The salon culture and its emphasis on private, intimate spaces with their elegant designs continue to reflect the essence of Rococo's emphasis on beauty, intellect, and the pursuit of personal indulgence. The Hôtel Particulier, aristocratic residences. The Hôtel Particulier was a type of private mansion that became iconic during the Rococo period, symbolizing the wealth, sophistication, and private luxury of the French aristocracy. These residences, distinct from grand palaces or royal residences, were designed as individual homes for the nobility and the upper classes. Unlike the grandiose, ceremonial buildings associated with Baroque architecture, the Hotel Particulier was more intimate, designed for personal use and social gatherings, reflecting the Rococo ideals of comfort and elegance. The Hotel Particulier was typically located in the heart of the city, particularly in Paris, where aristocrats wanted to establish a prestigious urban presence while still maintaining a degree of privacy. The building's facade often presented a restrained, classical appearance to the outside world, but the interior was a showcase of the homeowner's wealth and taste. The courtyard entrance was an essential feature of the hotel, providing an element of exclusivity and seclusion, as guests would enter through a gate and pass into an inner courtyard before accessing the private residence. Inside, the layout of the Hotel Particulier was carefully planned to reflect both functionality and aesthetic beauty. The interior spaces were designed to create an atmosphere of intimacy, with richly decorated salons, salons de musique, and libraries serving as places for socializing and entertainment. The salon, in particular, was a space for both intellectual conversation and leisure, frequently hosting gatherings of artists, writers, and philosophers. These rooms were designed to be visually engaging and reflective of the Rococo style, with curved walls, elaborate moldings, and luxurious furnishings in soft pastel hues. Furniture was light and delicate, with gilded accents and floral patterns, creating a sense of comfort and opulence. The ornate decoration of the Hotel Particulier extended to every detail, from the stucco work on the ceilings to the exquisite tapestries and paintings that adorned the walls. Mirrors were commonly used to enhance the sense of light and space, creating the illusion of larger, more open areas. One of the defining aspects of these aristocratic residences was the integration of art and architecture, where every element of the design, from furniture to wall coverings, contributed to a unified and harmonious aesthetic. The use of natural motifs, such as flowers, leaves, and shells, was a recurring theme, reflecting the Rococo preference for the whimsical and the organic. The Hotel Particulier was not merely a residence, but an emblem of aristocratic lifestyle, an elegant retreat where one could retreat from the rigors of court life and enjoy the pleasures of private luxury. Its interior design, blending comfort, beauty, and intellectual engagement, became a model for elite living during the Rococo era, leaving a lasting influence on French architectural history. These private residences were emblematic of an age that valued indulgence, personal expression, and the pursuit of leisure in an environment of unparalleled elegance. Ornate ceilings, gilded molding, and stucco work. The Rococo style is renowned for its elaborate and refined decorative elements, with ornate ceilings, gilded molding, and stucco work standing out as defining features of the movement's architectural and interior design. These elements were integral to creating the ethereal and luxurious atmosphere that characterized Rococo interiors, enhancing both the beauty and functionality of the spaces. Ornate ceilings were one of the most striking aspects of Rococo design, often serving as a canvas for artists to express the lighthearted, whimsical qualities of the era. In contrast to the more restrained and formal Baroque ceilings, Rococo ceilings were designed to feel airy and dynamic. They were typically adorned with pastel-colored frescoes, mythological themes, and floral patterns, creating an illusion of open space and infinite light. The frescoes often depicted celestial scenes, such as goddesses, cherubs, and vivid landscapes, evoking feelings of elegance, playfulness, and fantasy. The design of the ceilings was meant to draw the eye upward, enhancing the sense of height and lightness within the room. These intricate works were designed not just as decorations, but as integral parts of the room's overall aesthetic. Gilded molding also played a prominent role in Rococo interiors, providing a sense of opulence and intricacy. The use of gold leaf or gold-painted moldings helped frame architectural features and furniture, lending an air of refinement to the spaces. These gilded details were not only used to define edges and create contrast, but they also served to catch the light, adding a subtle glow to the room. Gilded moldings often took on intricate, flowing patterns, incorporating motifs of flowers, leaves, and scrolls, which aligned with the Rococo penchant for organic, natural forms. The curvature of these patterns added a sense of movement to the room, contributing to the fluidity and whimsy that characterized Rococo style. Stucco work was another hallmark of Rococo design, with artisans using it to create intricate textures and forms on walls and ceilings. Stucco allowed for the creation of elaborate three-dimensional designs, such as floral garlands, shells, and scrollwork, which complemented the soft curves and fluid shapes seen throughout Rococo interiors. Stucco was often used in combination with gilding to enhance the richness of a room, with delicate white stucco juxtaposed against gilded accents, creating a luminous, luxurious effect. The use of light pastel hues in the stucco work, often painted with soft shades of cream, pink, or blue, helped to keep the spaces feeling airy and light, maintaining the playful and intimate atmosphere that was a key feature of Rococo interiors. Together, the ornate ceilings, gilded moldings, and stucco work formed a cohesive visual experience, creating an environment of elegance, luxury, and refined beauty. These architectural features were more than mere decoration. They were integral to the Rococo ethos, which sought to elevate the everyday into something fantastical and sublime. Notable examples: Amalienborg and Versailles' Petit Trianon. Two of the most celebrated examples of Rococo architecture are Amalienborg and the Petit Trianon at Versailles, which embody the era's ideals of elegance, intimacy, and luxuriousness. Both structures are notable for their exquisite Rococo designs, marked by refined ornamentation, intricate detailing, and an overall emphasis on comfort and beauty. Amalienborg, located in the park of Nymphenburg Palace near Munich, is a prime example of Rococo's lighter, more delicate aesthetic. Built between 1734 and 1739 for Electress Maria Amalia, the hunting lodge was designed by Franz Assam and reflects the height of Rococo's playful and intimate qualities. The building is an epitome of the Rococo's emphasis on refined luxury and personal enjoyment, with rooms that are smaller and more personal compared to the grand palaces of the time. The Hall of Mirrors in Amalienborg is one of its most famous rooms, featuring a stunning arrangement of mirrors, gilded moldings, and delicate stucco work that reflects light and creates a sense of spaciousness, while the soft pastel colors on the walls and ceilings enhance the room's airy, ethereal quality. The use of natural motifs, such as flowers, leaves, and shells throughout the lodge, gives the space a whimsical, organic feel, embodying the Rococo love of nature and lightness. This combination of intimate spaces, luxurious decoration, and naturalistic elements makes Amalienborg a quintessential example of the Rococo style. At the same time, the Petit Trianon at Versailles, designed by Ange-Jacques Gabriel for Queen Marie Antoinette in the 1760s, is another iconic Rococo structure that was built as a private retreat for the Queen, separate from the official court life at Versailles. While Versailles itself represents Baroque grandeur, the Petit Trianon was designed with a lighter, more personal approach to both architecture and interior design. The architecture of the Petit Trianon is marked by graceful proportions, elegant facades, and simple, refined detailing that contrasts with the more imposing structures of the main palace. Inside, the rooms are decorated with luxurious but soft furnishings, including gilded mirrors, intricate moldings, and delicate pastel tones that create a calm, almost dreamlike atmosphere. The building's design and its beautiful gardens reflect Marie Antoinette's desire for a more private, serene space, far removed from the formalities and political drama of court life. The Petit Trianon's interiors, like those of Amalienborg, demonstrate the Rococo taste for intimacy, comfort, and grace, offering a perfect escape into personal indulgence and lighthearted luxury. Both Amalienburg and the Petit Trianon are exceptional examples of how Rococo architecture prioritized personal luxury and refined beauty, focusing on smaller, more intimate spaces that were designed to encourage relaxation and enjoyment. These buildings encapsulate the Rococo era's ideals and continue to stand as monuments to the era's elegance and charm. Chapter 5, Rococo Sculpture and Decorative Arts. Rococo sculpture and decorative arts, like their counterparts in painting and architecture, were characterized by a light, playful, and ornate aesthetic. These art forms embrace delicate forms, intricate detailing, and an overall sense of luxury and intimacy. Rococo sculpture sought to evoke emotions of grace and beauty, often representing themes of love, mythology, and nature. It stood in stark contrast to the more dramatic, monumental forms of Baroque sculpture, focusing instead on fluid lines, elegance, and a sense of lightness. One of the defining characteristics of Rococo sculpture was its emphasis on ornamentation. Sculptors were deeply influenced by the natural world, incorporating motifs such as flowers, shells, vines, and cherubs into their works. These elements were used to create an atmosphere of enchantment and whimsy, fitting seamlessly into the Rococo world of luxury and leisure. The works were often small-scale and intended for personal enjoyment, whether displayed in private residences or gardens. One of the most renowned sculptors of this period, Jean-Baptiste Carpeaux, was famous for creating pieces that were not only graceful but full of movement, exemplifying the Rococo's dynamic sense of lightness. The decorative arts during the Rococo period flourished, with furniture, porcelain, and silverware taking on intricate, ornate forms. Rococo furniture was marked by curved lines, delicate inlays, and exquisite detailing, often made from fine materials such as marquetry and gilded wood. Furniture was designed not just for functionality, but as an expression of personal taste and refinement. Chairs, tables, and cabinets often featured soft, flowing shapes, delicate carvings of flowers, shells, and scrolls, and upholstered in luxurious fabrics like silk and velvet. Porcelain was another area where Rococo craftsmanship truly shone. The Sèvres porcelain factory, established in the mid-18th century, became world famous for its production of fine porcelain pieces decorated with pastel hues and playful, intricate scenes. These pieces, often crafted into delicate vases, figurines, and serviceware, epitomize the Rococo love of elegance and excess, combining beauty with functionality. Silverwork during the Rococo period was similarly ornate, with intricate repoussé designs and gilded accents that reflected the same values of luxury and refinement. Silver pieces, such as goblets, candelabras, and trays, were often adorned with flowing designs of flowers, leaves, and cherubs, reinforcing the Rococo's celebration of nature and the pleasures of daily life. Rococo sculpture and decorative arts provided a reflection of the period's values, an embrace of beauty, sensuality, and whimsy. They contributed to an environment where art was not just for public display or religious devotion, but an intimate part of private life. These works of art were designed to delight the senses and elevate the everyday, transforming ordinary objects and spaces into realms of beauty and pleasure. Playful and dynamic sculptures. Rococo sculpture is best known for its playful and dynamic nature, in stark contrast to the more dramatic and monumental works of the Baroque era. It embodied the period's embrace of lightness, movement, and whimsy, reflecting the cultural shift towards a more intimate and sensuous experience of art. Sculptors of the Rococo period sought to create pieces that were both visually engaging and emotionally evocative, often conveying a sense of grace and joy. A defining feature of Rococo sculpture was its use of asymmetry and fluidity in form. Unlike the static and heavily structured Baroque sculptures, Rococo works often depicted figures in playful poses, caught in moments of light-hearted movement. This created a sense of energy and life within the sculptures. Figures were often portrayed in dynamic compositions with flowing drapery, soft, curved lines, and intricate detailing. These sculptures were not rigid or imposing, but sought to captivate the viewer with their elegance and delicate beauty. The subject matter of Rococo sculptures further reflected the light-hearted spirit of the time. Artists frequently turned to themes of love, mythology, and nature, presenting figures such as goddesses, cherubs, and nymphs in moments of playful interaction. Cupid, for example, was a popular figure, often depicted in mischievous poses, symbolizing love and affection in its most carefree and spontaneous form. These subjects, filled with romanticism and fantasy, captured the Rococo ethos of sensuality and pleasure. The works of Jean-Baptiste Carpeaux, one of the period's most famous sculptors, are a prime example of the playful and dynamic nature of Rococo sculpture. His pieces often depicted figures in fluid, graceful poses, suggesting movement and life. Carpeau's use of soft, curving lines and delicate details gave his works an almost dreamlike quality, with each piece embodying a sense of emotion and energy. His La Danse, a famous sculpture, illustrates this with its depiction of a lively dance, full of rhythm and playful exuberance. In addition to creating dynamic human forms, Rococo sculptors were also deeply influenced by nature, incorporating motifs of flowers, shells, and leaves into their works. These natural elements brought a sense of organic growth and movement to sculptures, further enhancing their playfulness. The use of negative space, the deliberate inclusion of empty areas within the sculpture, also contributed to the sense of dynamism, as it allowed the figures to appear light and almost weightless. Overall, Rococo sculptures were crafted to engage the viewer not only with their physical beauty, but with their sense of movement, spontaneity, and joy. The sculptures encapsulated the spirit of the Rococo period, where art was not only meant to be admired for its craftsmanship, but also to delight the senses and evoke a sense of playfulness and fantasy. The influence of classical mythology. Classical mythology played a significant role in shaping Rococo sculpture, serving as a rich source of inspiration for artists seeking to evoke themes of love, beauty, and human emotion. While Rococo sculpture is often celebrated for its lightness and playful nature, its ties to classical antiquity, particularly Greek and Roman mythology, were crucial in defining its thematic and stylistic elements. The figures and stories of mythology allowed artists to explore universal themes such as love, desire, and the divine, presenting them through a lens of elegance and sensuality. One of the most prominent mythological figures to appear in Rococo sculpture was Cupid, the Roman god of love. Often depicted in playful or mischievous poses, Cupid became a symbol of romantic love and the joys of sensuality, aligning with the Rococo's emphasis on pleasure and lightheartedness. Sculptors like Jean-Baptiste Carpeaux and Louis-Simon Boiseau often used Cupid to represent the carefree and indulgent nature of the era. His depictions were frequently playful, showing him in various states of action, from shooting arrows to chasing nymphs. These representations of love, as seen through Cupid's lens, mirrored the Rococo's idealization of youthful, spontaneous emotion. In addition to Cupid, mythological figures such as Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, were commonly depicted in Rococo sculptures. Venus was often shown in moments of beauty, grace, and sensuality, embodying the very essence of feminine allure and refinement that characterized Rococo ideals. These depictions were not overly dramatic or solemn, but rather imbued with a sense of delicate elegance. Sculptors such as François Boucher and Jean-Antoine Houdon sought to represent Venus not as a distant or divine figure, but as a playful, approachable deity, reflecting the intimacy and lightness central to the Rococo style. The mythological world also provided sculptors with an opportunity to express the sensual relationship between humanity and nature. Figures like Diana, the huntress, and Pan, the god of the wild, were often portrayed in moments of interaction with their natural surroundings. These figures, adorned with flowing drapery or surrounded by flowers and foliage, exemplified the Rococo's affinity for organic forms and natural beauty. The delicate details, such as the soft curves of the body or the inclusion of playful cherubs, allowed mythological themes to be rendered in a way that felt both grounded and ethereal. By drawing on classical mythology, Rococo sculptors were able to create works that resonated with themes of love, beauty, and emotion, but with a freshness and lightness that was unique to their time. This connection to the classical world enabled the Rococo to not only celebrate the past, but also reinterpret it through a lens of joyful sensuality and delicate elegance. Decorative porcelain, Sèvres and Meissen. Decorative porcelain became one of the defining features of Rococo decorative arts, with two factories, Sèvres and Meissen, standing out as leaders in producing some of the finest porcelain pieces of the 18th century. Both of these prestigious porcelain manufacturers played pivotal roles in defining the aesthetic of the Rococo period, with their exquisite craftsmanship, intricate designs, and vibrant use of color becoming synonymous with the luxury and elegance of the era. Sèvres, established in 1738 in France, quickly became the preeminent porcelain manufacturer of the Rococo period, renowned for its delicate and refined creations. Sèvres porcelain was characterized by its light pastel hues, floral motifs, and playful, often whimsical designs. Artists at Sèvres employed techniques such as gilding, enamel painting, and lacquer work to create richly detailed pieces. Their porcelain figurines, often depicting themes from mythology, romance, and nature, were crafted with meticulous care. The designs were often inspired by the playful, sensuous themes of the Rococo period, with figures of cupids, nymphs, and pastoral scenes, capturing the movement and lightness that defined the era. The vivid color palette of Sèvres porcelain, often featuring shades of rose, sky blue, and mint green, was both fresh and airy, perfectly complementing the soft, organic forms of the figures and decorations. Sèvres also became famous for producing elaborate porcelain vases, plates, and serving sets, which were often gilded and decorated with highly detailed scenes. These pieces were not just functional, but were created as luxurious and artistic objects designed for aristocratic dining and display. The vases, in particular, showcase the Rococo's love of elegance and excess, often incorporating ornate bases, delicate handles, and intricate patterns. Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, was a patron of Sèvres porcelain, and many of the pieces produced during her reign reflected her personal tastes, with naturalistic motifs and romantic themes that aligned with her vision of refined beauty. Meissen, founded in the early 18th century in Germany, also played a pivotal role in the Rococo porcelain industry, especially in the development of the European porcelain industry. Meissen's porcelain was similarly fine and delicate, and it quickly became known for its intricate craftsmanship. Meissen was one of the first factories to develop true hard-paste porcelain, which allowed for finer, more durable pieces. The figures produced at Meissen often depicted scenes from Greek mythology, with gods and goddesses rendered in playful, intimate poses. Their figures of love, fantasy, and nature were highly detailed, capturing the grace and elegance that Rococo art celebrated. Both Sèvres and Meissen were not just manufacturers of porcelain, but symbols of the Rococo's luxurious and intimate aesthetic. Their creations became coveted by the aristocracy and royalty across Europe, embodying the period's taste for beauty, refinement, and decorative excess. These porcelain masterpieces continue to be revered today for their artistry, craftsmanship, and their role in defining the visual culture of the Rococo period. The role of furniture and tapestry in Rococo interiors. In Rococo interiors, furniture and tapestry played integral roles in creating the luxurious, intimate atmosphere that defined the era. Both art forms were not just functional, but were carefully designed to enhance the overall aesthetic experience of the space, serving as expressions of taste, sophistication, and wealth. The furniture, often ornate and meticulously crafted, and the tapestries, which added layers of color, texture, and narrative to a room, were essential in shaping the Rococo style's sense of comfort, elegance, and playfulness. Furniture in Rococo interiors was characterized by its graceful, flowing forms and intricate ornamentation. Unlike the heavy, imposing furniture of the Baroque era, Rococo pieces favored lightness, with curved lines, asymmetrical designs, and delicate carvings that often featured motifs of flowers, shells, and foliage. Chairs, sofas, and tables were designed to be inviting and comfortable, with an emphasis on elegance rather than grandeur. Upholstery was often made from luxurious fabrics such as silk, velvet, and brocade, featuring soft pastel colors or delicate patterns that echoed the Rococo preference for gentleness and refinement. The furniture often had a delicate, almost whimsical quality, with ornate gilded edges and inlay work, creating a sense of luxury without overwhelming the senses. The intimate size and refined craftsmanship of Rococo furniture reflected the period's emphasis on private enjoyment and personal comfort, with an eye toward creating living spaces that were as much about beauty and leisure as about functionality. Tapestry, too, played a crucial role in Rococo interiors, providing an element of luxury, color, and narrative. Woven in fine wool, silk, and gold thread, Rococo tapestries often depicted romantic or mythological themes, such as scenes from classical mythology, pastoral landscapes, and elegant courtly pursuits. These tapestries helped to create a sense of warmth and intimacy, while also adding visual depth and complexity to the room. The works of tapestry weavers often featured soft, flowing lines and delicate details, which harmonized with the lighter tones and textures of the furniture. The tapestry scenes, many of which were designed by famous Rococo artists like François Boucher or Jean-Baptiste Udry, not only served as decoration but also added a narrative dimension to the room, telling stories of love, nature, or fantasy that complemented the lifestyle of the aristocracy. Together, furniture and tapestry in Rococo interiors created an immersive environment that balanced elegance with comfort, luxury with intimacy. These elements worked in unison to establish an atmosphere of indulgence, where beauty was woven into every aspect of daily life. The Rococo style, focused on pleasure, refinement, and escape from the formalities of court life, found its fullest expression in the artistry of its furniture and tapestries, transforming living spaces into true works of art. Chapter 6: The Spread of Rococo Across Europe. The Rococo style, with its emphasis on elegance, ornamentation, and playful beauty, began in France in the early 18th century, but quickly spread across Europe, becoming a dominant aesthetic in many royal courts and aristocratic households. The French court, under the influence of Louis XV and the French aristocracy, was the birthplace of Rococo, but its reach extended far beyond France, influencing art, architecture, and design across Europe, from Germany to Italy, England, and Austria. The spread of Rococo was significantly aided by royal patronage and the movement of artists, designers, and craftsmen across borders. France's influence, particularly from the French court and the flourishing artistic salons, helped export the style to neighboring regions. In Germany, the Rococo style found its expression in the works of Balthasar Neumann, whose architectural designs for buildings such as the Würzburg residence reflected the grandeur and playfulness of the style. The Meissen porcelain factory, established in the early 18th century in Saxony, became a major center for Rococo craftsmanship, producing porcelain figurines, vases, and tableware that were admired across Europe for their delicacy and intricate designs. In Italy, Rococo was adapted to reflect the nation's existing artistic traditions, melding with Baroque elements to create a distinct Italian version of the style. The Venetian school, in particular, embraced Rococo's ornamental qualities, with Italian artists and architects such as Giovanni Battista Tiepolo incorporating lightness and elegance into their frescoes and decorative works. The Palazzo Labia in Venice, adorned with Tiepolo's frescoed ceilings, is a prime example of how Rococo architecture and painting were merged in Italy to create an atmosphere of luxury and refinement. In England, Rococo influenced interior design and furniture making. While British artists maintained a certain distance from the more extravagant aspects of the French Rococo, elements such as curved furniture, pastel color schemes, and floral patterns were incorporated into the design of drawing rooms and private salons. The works of designers like Thomas Chippendale and Robert Adam fused Rococo with neoclassical influences, creating a hybrid style that became particularly popular in the English Georgian era. The Austrian court, particularly during the reign of Maria Theresa, also embraced the Rococo style, with Vienna becoming a hub for the production of decorative arts and fine porcelain. The Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna exemplifies the Rococo's spread to the Austrian Empire, with its richly decorated rooms and fine furniture that reflect the elegance and refinement of the style. In essence, the Rococo style's spread across Europe was a reflection of the shared tastes of the European aristocracy and their desire to display wealth, sophistication, and a lighthearted embrace of beauty. Each country adapted the style to its own cultural and artistic traditions, resulting in a dynamic and multifaceted movement that left a lasting legacy across the continent. Rococo in Germany and the Bavarian influence. In Germany, Rococo found fertile ground in the early 18th century, particularly in the southern regions, where it was embraced by the aristocracy and royal courts. The style took on distinct characteristics in Germany, blending traditional Baroque elements with the lighter, more ornamental features of Rococo. The Bavarian influence was particularly pronounced, with the region playing a central role in the development and propagation of Rococo across the German-speaking lands. The Bavarian court, under the rule of Maximilian III Joseph, and later Louis XV's influence, was a major patron of Rococo art and architecture. The electoral palaces in Munich, particularly Nymphenburg Palace, are prime examples of the Bavarian Rococo style, which was characterized by its ornate decoration, delicate stucco work, and use of gilding. The design of these palaces, with their playful yet refined ornamentation, helped define Bavarian Rococo as a distinctive regional expression of the larger European movement. One of the most significant figures in the spread of Rococo in Bavaria was the architect Franz Xaver Dietrich, whose works emphasized elegance and lightness, hallmarks of the Rococo style. Dietrich, along with architect Balthasar Neumann, was responsible for some of the most famous Rococo buildings in Germany, including the Würzburg residence in Franconia. The architecture, with its combination of soft curves, asymmetry, and elegant motifs, perfectly encapsulated the Bavarian approach to Rococo, which was less extravagant than its French counterpart, but still incredibly refined and opulent. German Rococo also had a significant impact on interior decoration, with ornate furniture and ceramics becoming highly sought after. Meissen porcelain, produced in the Saxony region, became one of the most important exports of Rococo Germany. The delicate porcelain figures, often depicting mythological scenes and pastoral themes, were admired across Europe for their intricate designs and vibrant use of color. Meissen's porcelain figurines and decorative vases became synonymous with luxury and elegance, contributing significantly to the Bavarian Rococo aesthetic. In the realm of fresco painting, Johann Baptist Zimmermann was a leading figure in the Bavarian Rococo movement, creating stunning ceiling frescoes that embodied the light, airy quality of the Rococo style. His work can be seen in churches such as the Wieskirche and the Assam Church in Munich, where his dramatic yet delicate use of color and imagery added to the sense of joy and grandeur associated with Rococo. These churches, with their intricate stucco work, gilded altars, and frescoed ceilings, reflect the Bavarian desire to blend religious devotion with the Rococo's focus on beauty and ornamentation. Overall, Rococo in Germany, and particularly in Bavaria, was characterized by its focus on graceful decoration, soft curves, and the blending of lightness with opulence. The Bavarian interpretation of the style was marked by a refined yet somewhat restrained luxury, setting it apart from the more extravagant French Rococo while still embodying the key themes of romanticism, leisure, and sensuality. The region's contribution to the Rococo movement remains a testament to the broader European cultural exchange that helped define this unique period in art and architecture. The Italian Rococo, Venice and Rome. Italy's embrace of Rococo was a fusion of its deep-rooted artistic heritage with the fresh ornamental trends that emerged in France during the early 18th century. The Italian Rococo style was shaped by the country's unique blend of Baroque traditions and newer, more playful stylistic elements, resulting in a softer and more decorative version of Rococo compared to its French counterparts. Venice and Rome were central to the spread of this style in Italy, each adopting and adapting it in ways that reflected their own cultural and artistic contexts. In Venice, the Rococo style merged seamlessly with the city's existing Baroque opulence. Venetian Rococo was marked by an embrace of luxury and refinement, as seen in the lavish decoration of palaces and churches. The ornate, highly decorative nature of Venetian Rococo was influenced by the city's tradition of rich textiles, elaborate stucco work, and gilded surfaces, combined with the lightness and intimacy of Rococo. Venetian interiors featured pastel colors, delicate floral patterns, and intricate curved forms, all elements that became synonymous with the style. The city's most famous Rococo painter, Giovanni Battista Tiepolo, was instrumental in shaping Venetian Rococo. Tiepolo's ceiling frescoes, known for their vivid colors, dramatic figures, and lightness of touch, captured the joyful and playful nature of the Rococo style while retaining the grandiosity that Venice had become known for. His works in places like the Palazzo Lubbia and the Ca' Rezzonico are prime examples of Venetian Rococo's synthesis of beauty, grandeur, and whimsy. Tiepolo's use of soft colors, the soft drapery of figures, and the depiction of mythical subjects were all in harmony with the Rococo style's preoccupation with fantasy and romance. In Rome, Rococo art and architecture became intertwined with the papal court and the city's religious institutions. While Rome had long been the center of Baroque art, by the mid-18th century, Rococo began to infiltrate the city's churches, palaces, and interior designs. Architects and artists such as Francesco de Sanctis and Gian Lorenzo Bernini's successors embraced the Rococo's lighter aesthetic, replacing the heavy, dramatic compositions of Baroque with more elegant, playful designs. The Church of Sant'Ignazio is a prime example of Roman Rococo, with its richly adorned interiors and ceilings painted to give the illusion of expansive sky. Rome also became a center for Rococo sculpture, with artists like Agostino Cornacchini and Francesco de Sanctis producing works that featured lighter, more graceful figures, often infused with mythological or religious themes. These sculptures were characterized by their fluid, almost ethereal quality, and were often integrated into church decorations or palatial settings. In both Venice and Rome, the Italian Rococo movement was characterized by its ornate and opulent decoration, but with a lighter, more playful twist compared to the grandiosity of the Baroque. The style in Italy, much like in other parts of Europe, became synonymous with luxury and intimacy, creating an environment that was not only visually captivating, but emotionally engaging. The elegance and grace of Italian Rococo left a lasting mark on European art and architecture, continuing to influence styles even as the Rococo era came to an end. The influence on British and Austrian art. The Rococo style, which flourished in France and Italy, eventually made its way to Britain and Austria, where it took on unique characteristics influenced by each nation's artistic traditions and cultural preferences. In both regions, Rococo had a significant impact on art, interior design, and decorative objects, though the adaptation of the style varied between the two countries. In Britain, Rococo elements were initially embraced by the aristocracy, who sought to adopt the latest French trends as symbols of luxury and refinement. However, British Rococo was often more restrained and less flamboyant than the French version. The British interpretation of Rococo was characterized by a fusion of French influence with the neoclassical and Baroque traditions that were already prevalent in the country. This was evident in interior design, where curved furniture and ornate woodwork became popular, particularly in drawing rooms and private salons. The designs, while elegant and light, maintained a sense of balance and symmetry, setting British Rococo apart from the more asymmetrical French examples. British furniture makers such as Thomas Chippendale and George Hepplewhite embraced Rococo's playful aesthetic, incorporating delicate carvings, floral patterns, and gilded finishes into their creations. Chippendale's works in particular blended Rococo with influences from Chinese and Gothic styles, creating a uniquely British interpretation of the ornamental style. In the world of painting, British artists like William Hogarth and Thomas Gainsborough were also influenced by Rococo, though they were more inclined to combine these influences with their own distinct national styles. Hogarth, with his satirical and moralizing subjects, introduced a form of Rococo that retained the playful quality of the French, but focused on more direct, socially relevant themes. Gainsborough, known for his portraits, imbued his works with the Rococo's soft, elegant brushwork and light pastel tones, capturing the aristocracy in a graceful yet intimate manner. His famous portraits, like the Blue Boy, reveal the influence of Rococo's grace and elegance in the rendering of figures and fabric. In Austria, the Rococo style became a prominent feature during the reign of Maria Theresa in the mid-18th century, as the Austrian court sought to reflect the same refinement and cultural sophistication that was seen in France. Vienna became a center of Rococo architecture and the decorative arts, with artists and architects like Balthasar Neumann and Johann Michael Fischer playing crucial roles in the development of Austrian Rococo. Neumann's work on the Würzburg residence in Bavaria is widely regarded as one of the finest examples of Rococo architecture, while Fischer's interior designs for churches and palaces in Vienna, including the Karlskirche and the Schönbrunn Palace, showcase the light, ethereal quality of the Rococo style. In Austrian painting, the Viennese school embraced Rococo's elegant, fluid lines and playful themes. Artists like Franz Anton Malbertsch captured the lightness and ornate beauty of the style in his ceiling frescoes and religious works, creating an atmosphere of fantasy and joy that was central to Rococo's appeal. Additionally, Austrian porcelain manufacturers, particularly those in Vienna, were heavily influenced by Rococo's emphasis on delicate craftsmanship and intricate design. The Vienna Porcelain Factory, founded in 1718, became known for its finely crafted pieces, often incorporating mythological or pastoral themes in line with the Rococo's aesthetic. Overall, the influence of Rococo on British and Austrian art reflected each nation's distinct cultural preferences, while maintaining the core elements of the style: elegance, ornamentation, and an emphasis on luxury and intimacy. While British Rococo was marked by a certain restraint and practical elegance, Austrian Rococo embraced grandeur and opulence, resulting in two distinct yet complementary interpretations of the style that enriched the artistic landscape of 18th century Europe. Rococo in Russia, the Catherine Palace. Rococo made its way to Russia during the 18th century, a period of immense cultural transformation under the reign of Catherine the Great. As a keen patron of the arts, Catherine sought to align Russia with the intellectual and artistic movements of Europe, particularly those of France. Rococo, with its emphasis on elegance, refinement, and luxury, was a perfect fit for the Russian aristocracy, and its influence is most vividly seen in the Catherine Palace, located just outside of St. Petersburg. The Catherine Palace, built for Catherine I, was expanded and transformed under the rule of Catherine the Great into a monumental symbol of Russian grandeur, showcasing the Rococo style in its full glory. The palace, designed by the architect Bartolomeo Rastrelli, was heavily influenced by the French Rococo ideals, with a focus on opulence and ornamentation. Rastrelli's design combined Baroque and Rococo elements, resulting in a structure that embraced the lightness and elegance of Rococo while retaining some of the grandeur of the earlier Baroque style. The palace's elaborate facade, with its golden trim, soft pastel colors, and intricate decorative details, embodies the playful yet luxurious spirit of Rococo. The interior of the Catherine Palace is perhaps the most striking example of Rococo's influence in Russia. The Great Hall, or Catherine Hall, with its gilded stucco, chandeliers, and elaborate mirrors, is a testament to the grandeur and opulence associated with Rococo. The walls and ceilings of the palace are adorned with ornate moldings, floral patterns, and paintings, all contributing to the sense of an expansive yet intimate environment. The use of soft pastel colors, delicate fabrics, and luxurious materials such as gold leaf and marble creates a sense of airiness and lightness, characteristics at the core of the Rococo aesthetic. One of the most famous areas in the Catherine Palace is the Amber Room, a small chamber originally designed in the early 18th century and later reconstructed in the Rococo style. The room, with its walls covered in intricately designed amber panels, mirrors, and gilded decorations, exemplifies the luxury and ornamentation that were central to Rococo design. It was considered one of the most lavish rooms of the palace, showcasing the extravagance and refinement of the Russian court under Catherine the Great. Throughout the Catherine Palace, the influence of Rococo can be seen in the delicate balance between elegance, playfulness, and luxury. The interiors, as well as the overall architecture, reflect the grandeur of the Russian court during the 18th century, while maintaining the Rococo ideals of intimacy, grace, and beauty. The palace served as a physical manifestation of Catherine the Great's desire to elevate Russia's cultural and artistic standing within Europe, and it remains one of the most remarkable examples of Rococo architecture and interior design in the world. Chapter 7: The Decline of Rococo and the Rise of Neoclassicism. By the late 18th century, the exuberant and ornate style of Rococo began to fall out of favor, giving way to the emergence of neoclassicism. This transition was influenced by a complex array of social, political, and intellectual factors that signaled the end of the Rococo era and the beginning of a new aesthetic period. As Rococo had been synonymous with luxury, leisure, and opulence, it gradually became associated with the excesses of the aristocracy, which was increasingly viewed with disdain by the rising middle class and intellectual elites. The French Revolution and the political upheavals of the period also played a pivotal role in challenging the established artistic norms, as the societal emphasis on excess and decadence was replaced by a desire for order, simplicity, and moral values. Rococo's ornamental style, which had been celebrated for its playfulness, delicate colors, and fantastical motifs, began to be criticized for its superficiality and lack of moral depth. Intellectual movements such as the Enlightenment called for reason, rationality, and a return to classical ideals that were seen as timeless and virtuous. The aesthetic associated with the classical world of ancient Greece and Rome became more appealing, providing an antidote to the perceived decadence of Rococo. Neoclassicism, with its emphasis on clarity, symmetry, and simplicity, stood in stark contrast to Rococo's asymmetry, ornamentation, and exaggerated forms. The rise of neoclassicism was further propelled by archaeological discoveries, such as the excavations at Pompeii and Herculaneum, which revived interest in the ancient Roman and Greek civilizations. Artists, architects, and designers began to look to the classical world for inspiration, seeking to create art and architecture that embodied the virtues of restraint, order, and heroism. This shift in taste was particularly evident in France, where Jacques-Louis David, a leading neoclassical painter, rejected the ornate and frivolous style of Rococo in favor of works that emphasized moral seriousness and classical themes. In architecture, the neoclassical movement quickly took hold, replacing the Rococo's curves and exuberant decorations with clean lines, columned facades, and Greek-inspired porticos. The new style was championed by architects like Jacques-Germain Soufflot and Claude-Nicolas Ledoux, whose works reflected the ideals of simplicity, functionality, and rational design. The Pantheon in Paris, originally conceived as the Church of Ste Geneviève, is an iconic example of neoclassical architecture, as it epitomizes the emphasis on classical forms and the abandonment of Rococo's exuberant ornamentation. By the end of the 18th century, the Rococo style had effectively been replaced by neoclassicism, a movement that sought to revive the principles of ancient art and architecture in a time of increasing political and social change. While Rococo had been a celebration of aristocratic excess, neoclassicism symbolized a return to order, morality, and rationality, reflecting the new values that were emerging across Europe. This shift marked the end of the Rococo era, but also the beginning of a new chapter in European artistic history that would influence generations to come. Criticism and changing tastes. As the 18th century progressed, the Rococo style, once celebrated for its elegance and luxury, began to face increasing criticism, particularly from emerging intellectual and artistic movements. While Rococo had initially been embraced by the aristocracy as a symbol of refinement and opulence, it eventually became associated with the excesses and superficiality of the French monarchy and the noble class. This shift in perception occurred as the political landscape of Europe began to change, with growing social and economic inequalities, particularly in France, culminating in the French Revolution. The aristocracy's indulgent lifestyle and its patronage of Rococo art were increasingly seen as out of touch with the struggles of the broader population. The Enlightenment, a period marked by an emphasis on reason, science, and rationality, also contributed to the decline of Rococo. Intellectuals of the era, such as Voltaire, Rousseau, and Diderot, advocated for a society based on reason and virtue, and they critiqued the excessive ornamentation and lack of moral depth in Rococo art. In contrast to the whimsical and playful themes of Rococo, Enlightenment thinkers championed a more serious and intellectual approach to art, one that promoted moral integrity and rational thought. They saw Rococo as frivolous and disconnected from the greater human condition, and its excesses were viewed as a reflection of the very decadence they sought to challenge. The shift in taste was also evident within the art world. Artists and architects began to move away from the lightness and ornamentation of Rococo in favor of a style that embraced simplicity, symmetry, and classical ideals. The rise of neoclassicism, inspired by the rediscovery of ancient Roman and Greek art through archaeological excavations, provided a stark contrast to Rococo's decorative excess. Artists like Jacques-Louis David and Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres rejected Rococo's focus on fantasy and romance in favor of heroic and moral themes rooted in antiquity. Neoclassicism emphasized clarity, restraint, and order, presenting a more serious and elevated artistic vision. The criticism of Rococo also found expression in the growing influence of the middle class, which increasingly valued art and design that reflected their own ideals of simplicity and practicality. The extravagance of Rococo was increasingly viewed as a symbol of aristocratic decadence, and as the French Revolution and other political upheavals reshaped Europe, the style became a symbol of an outmoded, pre-revolutionary order. By the late 18th century, these factors combined to shift public taste away from the exuberant luxury of Rococo and toward the more rational and moral underpinnings of neoclassicism. What had once been a reflection of aristocratic refinement now seemed disconnected from the political and social changes of the time, and thus, the Rococo era came to an end as the desire for a more grounded and meaningful art form took hold. The role of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment, a period spanning the late 17th and 18th centuries, played a pivotal role in the decline of Rococo and the rise of neoclassicism. This intellectual movement, which emphasized reason, science, and individual liberty, profoundly influenced both cultural and artistic trends across Europe. At its core, the Enlightenment was about challenging established norms and questioning traditional authority, including that of the monarchy and the aristocracy. As Enlightenment thinkers sought to promote values of rationality, order, and moral integrity, they criticized the frivolity and excess that were characteristic of Rococo art and architecture. Rococo, with its playful themes, delicate ornamentation, and focus on sensual pleasure, was increasingly viewed as emblematic of an aristocracy out of touch with the social and political realities of the time. The style had flourished under the patronage of the French monarchy and aristocrats who celebrated an era of luxury, elegance, and excessive indulgence. However, as the Enlightenment movement gained momentum, it became clear that these ideals were being scrutinized in favor of a new social order that valued reason and ethical principles over hedonism and ornamentation. Philosophers such as Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Denis Diderot played a significant role in shaping public opinion during this period. They advocated for the rejection of superficial pleasures and sought to promote moral clarity, rational thought, and the pursuit of truth in both thought and art. These ideals directly contradicted the whimsical, fantastical subjects that were prevalent in Rococo painting, sculpture, and interior design. The style's focus on love, romance, and light-hearted themes seem trivial in contrast to the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason, virtue, and social responsibility. The Enlightenment's critique of Rococo excess was also reflected in the growing political and social movements of the time. The French Revolution, in particular, served as a reaction to the opulence and aristocratic privilege that Rococo had symbolized. As revolutionary sentiment grew, there was a push for a return to simplicity and order seen in both political structures and art. This shift led to a preference for neoclassical art, which drew inspiration from ancient Greek and Roman ideals of restraint, symmetry, and moral virtue. In the world of art and architecture, this period of intellectual change saw a gradual departure from the ornate decoration of Rococo in favor of the clean lines and classical themes of neoclassicism. The paintings of Jacques-Louis David and the architecture of Claude-Nicolas Ledoux embraced simplicity and clarity, aligning with the values promoted by the Enlightenment. Art became a vehicle for social and moral education, emphasizing timeless themes of heroism and rationality rather than fleeting pleasures and frivolous indulgence. In sum, the Enlightenment was a crucial force in the decline of Rococo, as its ideals of rationality, simplicity, and moral virtue stood in stark contrast to the luxury and excessive ornamentation of the Rococo style. The intellectual revolution of the Enlightenment not only transformed philosophy and politics, but also reshaped the cultural landscape, leading to the birth of a new artistic direction that was more aligned with the values of the era. The influence of Jacques-Louis David and classical ideals. Jacques-Louis David, one of the most prominent painters of the late 18th century, played a crucial role in the decline of Rococo and the rise of neoclassicism. His works exemplified the return to classical ideals that became central to the neoclassical movement, which emerged as a response to the excesses of Rococo. David's art was deeply influenced by the values of ancient Greece and Rome, and he sought to embody these ideals through his use of simplicity, restraint, and moral seriousness. His impact on the art world during the Revolutionary and Napoleonic periods helped establish a new aesthetic that prioritized virtue and heroism over the playful and indulgent themes of Rococo. David's early works, such as The Oath of the Horatii, 1784, marked a stark departure from the ornamentation and whimsy of Rococo. The painting's theme of sacrifice, honor, and patriotism is based on a historical event from ancient Rome, and it exemplifies the neoclassical emphasis on moral virtue and rationality. The composition is characterized by strong lines, symmetry, and a clear focus on the figures and their actions, all of which contrast sharply with the asymmetry and superficial charm of Rococo art. David's use of these classical principles established him as a key figure in the neoclassical movement, positioning him as a stark contrast to Rococo's emphasis on decadence and aesthetic pleasure. David's commitment to classical ideals extended beyond the technical aspects of his painting. His works often contain themes of heroism, duty, and sacrifice, which resonated with the political and social climate of his time. During the French Revolution, David became a staunch supporter of revolutionary ideals, using his art to inspire and rally support for the movement. His painting, The Death of Socrates, 1787, embodies the moral courage of the philosopher, who, choosing to face his execution rather than compromise his beliefs, became a symbol of revolutionary values such as resistance to tyranny and personal integrity. David's influence extended beyond his own work. He was also a key figure in the academic training of younger artists who would carry forward the neoclassical movement. He rejected the ornamental and frivolous elements of Rococo and instead promoted the classical principles of clarity, purity, and moral seriousness. As the official painter of the French Revolution and later Napoleonic France, David's works were not only aesthetic expressions, but also political statements, reinforcing the idea that art should serve a higher purpose, the promotion of virtue, and the advancement of society. In sum, Jacques-Louis David was a pivotal figure in the decline of Rococo and the rise of neoclassicism. His embrace of classical ideals brought about a fundamental shift in the direction of Western art, with a focus on simplicity, restraint, and moral depth. Through his powerful depictions of historical and mythological subjects, David's art stood as a symbol of the rational, heroic values of the Enlightenment, ultimately helping to define the aesthetic and philosophical principles of neoclassicism. Rococo's legacy in modern art and design. Despite its decline in the late 18th century, the Rococo style left a lasting mark on art and design, influencing various movements well into the modern era. While Rococo itself was largely supplanted by neoclassicism and other styles, its emphasis on ornamentation, elegance, and playfulness resonated with later artists, designers, and movements that sought to revisit or reimagine the past. This legacy can be seen in Art Nouveau, Hollywood Regency, and even aspects of contemporary interior design, where the values of luxury and ornate detail continue to be celebrated. One of the most direct heirs to Rococo's aesthetic is Art Nouveau, which emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Like Rococo, Art Nouveau embraced organic shapes, flowing lines, and a fascination with nature, blending intricate details with sensuality and beauty. The organic curves of Rococo, seen in its furniture and architectural designs, were reincarnated in the sinuous forms and stylized floral patterns that defined Art Nouveau, as seen in the works of artists like Gustav Klimt and Antoni Gaudí. Both movements shared a desire to elevate everyday objects through elaborate decoration, creating an atmosphere of elegance and whimsy. In interior design, The influence of Rococo can still be observed in contemporary decor that favors luxurious, opulent spaces filled with ornate furniture, gilded details, and rich colors. The Hollywood Regency style, which became popular in the early to mid-20th century, is a prime example of Rococo's enduring influence. With its use of bold patterns, mirror accents, and luxurious fabrics, this style evokes the glamour and lavishness of Rococo while incorporating modern sensibilities. The flamboyant use of color and elaborate ornamentation in Hollywood Regency furniture and interiors can be traced back to Rococo's decorative richness and its focus on creating visually stunning and dramatic spaces. Rococo's legacy also persists in the continued use of pastel color palettes, Baroque-inspired flourishes, and decorative details in various forms of modern visual arts. Fashion design, for instance, occasionally incorporates Rococo-inspired silhouettes and embellishments, especially in the work of designers who embrace opulence and romanticism in their collections. Designers like Jean-Paul Gaultier and John Galliano have drawn from Rococo for inspiration, blending historical influences with modern creativity to create garments that embody the luxury and dramatic flair associated with the Rococo era. Rococo's ability to evoke luxury, grace, and romanticism ensures its place in the cultural imagination. Its legacy continues to influence contemporary art, design, and fashion, making it an enduring symbol of beauty and elegance that transcends its historical period. Whether through ornate interiors, flamboyant fashion, or decorative arts, the influence of Rococo remains visible, illustrating the lasting appeal of its sumptuous, sensual aesthetic. Chapter 8: The Enduring Influence of Rococo. Although Rococo as a dominant style faded in the late 18th century, its influence has endured in the worlds of art, design, fashion, and architecture, continuing to inspire modern movements and creators. The elegance, ornamentation, and playfulness characteristic of Rococo found a place in various artistic expressions over the centuries, often reinterpreted and adapted to suit new cultural and aesthetic contexts. Its legacy remains particularly strong in interior design, fashion, and visual arts, where elements of Rococo's sensuality and decorative richness continue to make an impact. In interior design, Rococo's intricate and luxurious style remains an enduring reference point. Its emphasis on delicate curves, gilded details, and pastel color schemes can still be seen in contemporary opulent spaces, whether in modern luxury homes or public spaces that seek to evoke grandeur and refinement. The Hollywood Regency style, which emerged in the 20th century, is one example where the Baroque-inspired details of Rococo, such as ornate furniture, mirrored surfaces, and rich fabrics, were reincorporated with a modern twist. Similarly, Art Deco designers drew from Rococo's sense of elegance, though they translated it into the streamlined geometric forms of their own time. Rococo's legacy is also evident in fashion. Designers frequently look back to the 18th century for inspiration when they want to evoke a sense of romance, luxury, and exuberance. Elements such as ruffles, lace, corsetry, and luxurious fabrics continue to appear in high fashion, whether in couture collections or in garments designed to create a dramatic, romantic aesthetic. High fashion designers like Jean-Paul Gaultier, John Galliano, and Vivienne Westwood have often referenced Rococo in their work, incorporating its sensuality and intricate detailing while fusing it with modern sensibilities. The result is a blend of historical opulence with contemporary boldness. The visual arts have also maintained Rococo's influence, particularly in movements like Art Nouveau in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This style, with its flowing, organic forms and emphasis on decorative detail, drew directly from the playful, curvilinear shapes and rich, ornamental quality of Rococo. Additionally, The lightness and romanticism found in Rococo painting, particularly in works by Watteau and Fragonard, have been influential in shaping the atmosphere and mood of modern art and illustration, particularly in works that seek to capture a sense of whimsy or idealized beauty. Rococo's lasting impact is also felt in architecture, especially in styles that sought to evoke luxury and romance. While movements like neoclassicism and modernism eventually eclipsed Rococo's popularity in the 19th and 20th centuries, Rococo's ideals of beauty, ornamentation, and playfulness are still incorporated into design work today. Whether in grand public spaces, luxury hotels, or modern palaces, the Rococo legacy remains an essential part of how we understand artistic beauty and the pursuit of elegance and decorative grandeur. In conclusion, while Rococo may no longer dominate the artistic landscape as it once did, its influence is still felt across diverse forms of creative expression. Its aesthetic principles of luxury, romanticism, and ornamental beauty continue to shape modern art, design, and fashion, illustrating the enduring appeal of this vibrant and captivating style. Revival and adaptations in the 19th and 20th centuries. The Rococo style, despite its decline in the late 18th century, experienced several revivals and adaptations in the 19th and 20th centuries. As the aesthetic principles of elegance, ornamentation, and luxury continued to captivate the imagination, artists and designers began to draw from Rococo's sensuous and playful nature, reinterpreting its designs and themes to reflect new historical contexts and cultural movements. These revivals often appeared in response to the dominant artistic styles of the time, with Rococo's exuberant forms offering a contrast to the more restrained, rational aesthetics of neoclassicism and the industrial age aesthetic of modernism. During the 19th century, the Victorian era saw a renewed interest in Rococo, particularly in the realm of interior design and decorative arts. The Victorians, known for their love of ornate and heavily detailed styles, looked back to Rococo for inspiration, merging it with their own tastes to create what is often referred to as Victorian Rococo Revival. This revival saw heavily decorated furniture, gilded frames, and pastel color schemes becoming popular once again. Victorian interiors, with their emphasis on luxury and comfort, embraced Rococo's decorative flourishes, often blending them with elements of Baroque and Gothic styles to create eclectic and richly textured environments. The revival of Rococo's aesthetic values during this time contributed to the romantic and sentimental atmosphere that defined Victorian homes and public spaces. The 20th century experienced another resurgence of Rococo through the Art Nouveau movement, which, although distinct, shared Rococo's appreciation for organic forms, elegant curves, and intricate decoration. Art Nouveau sought to break from the rigid forms of industrial society by embracing more fluid, natural shapes and integrating fine craftsmanship with design. Designers like Gustav Klimt, Alphonse Mucha, and Antoni Gaudí were heavily influenced by Rococo's sense of ornamental beauty, which was reflected in their whimsical, curvilinear designs. The fluidity and natural forms of Rococo found new life in the decorative elements of Art Nouveau, such as in the use of floral motifs and whimsical lines in furniture, architecture, and graphic design. In the mid-20th century, Rococo's influence could be seen in the Hollywood Regency style, which combined glamour and opulence in a way that echoed Rococo's emphasis on luxury. This style was particularly prominent in the design of cinematic interiors, which were meant to evoke a sense of extravagance and romance. Similarly, designers like Christian Dior and Hubert de Givenchy in fashion often incorporated elements of Rococo's delicacy and grace into their work, favoring floral patterns, ruffles, and luxurious fabrics. Thus, the revival and adaptation of Rococo in the 19th and 20th centuries were marked by a fascination with its intricate designs, sensuality, and decorative charm. These periods sought to reawaken Rococo's playful spirit while integrating it into the new aesthetic values and technological advances of their respective times, ensuring that the style's legacy would continue to be felt in art, design, and culture well into the modern era. Rococo's impact on fashion and decorative arts. Rococo, with its emphasis on luxury, ornamentation, and playfulness, profoundly influenced the realms of fashion and decorative arts, leaving a lasting legacy that extended far beyond the 18th century. The delicate and intricate aesthetics of Rococo, characterized by graceful forms, soft pastel tones, and floral motifs, reshaped the way people approached both the design of clothing and the decoration of personal spaces. From the extravagant costumes of the French aristocracy to the opulent interiors of elite homes, Rococo helped define an era of sensuality and refinement that continued to resonate in future artistic movements. In the world of fashion, Rococo became synonymous with lavish, ornate clothing that accentuated both elegance and individuality. The fashion of the time was marked by elaborate garments, including bustle skirts, ruffled lace, and embroidered silk fabrics, all intended to create a dramatic effect. Women's dresses were often adorned with lace, ribbons, and floral patterns, reflecting the playful, romantic sensibilities of Rococo. The intricate designs and luxurious fabrics of Rococo fashion were meant to convey a sense of refinement and status, with detailed bodices and petticoats emphasizing a highly feminine silhouette. These garments were often completed with accessories such as elaborate hats, headdresses, and fans, which further underscored the Rococo ideals of ornate beauty and the celebration of the female form. Men's fashion during this period also saw a shift toward luxury, with tailored coats, lace cuffs, and decorative waistcoats becoming popular among the elite, blending elegance with playful flourish. Rococo's influence also extended to the decorative arts, particularly in the realms of furniture, porcelain, and interior design. Furniture became more ornate and elegant, with elaborate carvings and curvaceous lines. Chairs, tables, and mirrors were often gilded, their surfaces enriched with delicate floral and shell motifs that evoked a sense of luxury and whimsy. The finest examples of Rococo furniture were crafted by artisans such as Jean-François Eben, who created intricate pieces with curvilinear shapes and detailed craftsmanship. Porcelain was also transformed during the Rococo era, with famous manufacturers like Sèvres and Meissen producing delicately painted pieces that featured pastel colors, floral designs, and mythological themes. These porcelain objects were often used to decorate the most luxurious homes, becoming symbols of wealth and taste. In interior design, the Rococo style celebrated opulence and comfort, with rooms featuring gilded moldings, ornate mirrors, and richly decorated fabrics. Walls were adorned with chinoiserie wallpaper, and luxurious textiles, such as silk brocade and damask, were used to create an atmosphere of elegant excess. The overall aesthetic was one of playful refinement, with every object designed to evoke beauty, romance, and a sense of elegance. In sum, Rococo's impact on fashion and the decorative arts is profound and enduring. The ornate beauty and luxury that defined this period not only shaped the aesthetic standards of the time, but also laid the foundation for future artistic movements. The opulence and elegance of Rococo continue to influence modern fashion and design, ensuring its place as a pivotal moment in the history of art and culture. Modern interpretations in interior design. Rococo's influence on interior design remains remarkably strong, even centuries after its initial rise. The style's inherent luxury, ornamentation, and playfulness have inspired modern interpretations that blend its rich details with contemporary design principles. Today, Rococo elements are often reimagined to create spaces that balance elegance and comfort, maintaining the spirit of the past while embracing modern sensibilities. These reinterpretations can be seen in both high-end residential spaces and commercial interiors, with designers adapting Rococo's distinctive characteristics to suit the needs of today's aesthetic and functional demands. In modern interior design, Rococo's opulence and ornate beauty often appear in the form of decorative furniture, gilded accents, and luxurious fabrics. Designers have adapted Rococo's intricate carvings and curvaceous forms to suit more streamlined, minimalistic spaces, where such pieces are used as focal points rather than overwhelming entire rooms. The combination of modern furniture silhouettes with Rococo-inspired detailing, like gold leaf accents, floral patterns, and intricate woodwork, creates an elegant balance between the old and the new. These elements can often be found in luxury hotels, boutique shops, or private homes that desire a touch of grandeur but with contemporary practicality. One of the most common ways Rococo influences modern design is through the use of soft pastel colors, which continue to evoke the light and airy mood associated with the 18th century style. Pale blues, rosy pinks, and mint greens are often incorporated into walls, furniture, and textiles, providing a serene, romantic atmosphere that recalls Rococo's focus on beauty and sensuality. Designers often pair these soft tones with bold contrasts, such as dark woods or metallic finishes, to create dynamic, sophisticated spaces that still maintain an air of refinement. In luxury homes and boutique hotels, ornate mirrors, elaborate chandeliers, and floral wallpapers have become staples of a modern Rococo-inspired aesthetic. These statement pieces often serve as artworks in their own right, drawing the eye and enhancing the overall grandeur of the space. The Rococo-inspired ceiling design also makes a comeback, with ornamental moldings, gilded cornices, and intricate stucco work applied to modern ceilings to recreate the sense of opulence once associated with 18th century palaces. However, modern interpretations of Rococo also incorporate more minimalistic touches, stripping down the overwhelming ornamentation that characterized the original style. In some cases, Rococo's influence is reflected in a more refined, pared-back form, where curved edges and light embellishments are used sparingly. This allows designers to maintain the charm and whimsy of Rococo while creating spaces that align with contemporary tastes for simplicity and function. In essence, modern interior design has embraced the spirit of Rococo by blending its ornamental beauty and elegance with current trends, creating sophisticated spaces that evoke luxury, romance, and grace. These interpretations prove that, even today, Rococo remains a significant source of inspiration for designers seeking to infuse their creations with timeless elegance and refined beauty. Rococo in popular culture and contemporary media. Rococo, with its emphasis on luxury, ornate beauty, and romanticism, continues to influence popular culture and contemporary media, often evoking a sense of elegance and grandeur. From cinema to fashion, Rococo's distinct aesthetic has been adapted and reimagined, often used to reflect themes of excess, sensuality, and opulence. The style's intricate details and whimsical forms have found a place in various modern artistic expressions, showcasing its lasting appeal and versatility. In cinema, Rococo's influence is perhaps most notable in historical films and costume dramas. Movies set in the 18th century or those depicting the French aristocracy frequently draw on the Rococo aesthetic to capture the luxurious world of the period. Films like Marie Antoinette, 2006, directed by Sofia Coppola, offer a modern take on Rococo style, blending historical accuracy with a contemporary soundtrack and vibrant visuals. The film's costumes and lavish sets, from elaborate gowns to ornate interiors, reflect the spirit of Rococo, emphasizing the grandeur and decadence of the French court. By using Rococo's playful pastels, floral patterns, and intricate detailing, such films connect the elegance of the past with modern sensibilities, creating a unique, visually stunning experience that resonates with contemporary audiences. In fashion, Rococo's influence persists, especially in couture collections that channel the period's characteristic elegance and romance. Designers such as Jean-Paul Gaultier, Alexander McQueen, and Vivienne Westwood have incorporated Rococo-inspired details, ruffles, lace, and ornate embroidery into their collections, often giving them a modern, edgy twist. Rococo's playful spirit and luxurious fabrics continue to inspire fashion that evokes the extravagance of the period while maintaining a fresh, contemporary feel. Whether in the form of high-fashion gowns or accessories, Rococo's ornate beauty is a recurring source of inspiration in the fashion world, drawing on its rich historical context to create romantic, bold designs. In art and illustration, Rococo's influence can also be seen in contemporary graphic design, particularly in projects that seek to evoke a sense of whimsy and romanticism. The use of floral motifs, curved lines, and ornamental flourishes has been adapted for modern book covers, advertisements, and digital art, where designers draw on Rococo's playful aesthetic to convey a sense of beauty and luxury. Its influence also appears in music videos, especially those with lavish, stylized settings, where Rococo-inspired decor helps create a visual narrative of excess and sensuality. Finally, video games and virtual reality environments also occasionally draw from Rococo when designing fantastical worlds or historical settings. Rococo's visual language, marked by gilded frames, delicate scrollwork, and ornate palaces, can be seen in games that aim to create an atmosphere of opulence and romance, often used to represent the extravagant lives of royalty or the Baroque past. In sum, Rococo's influence in popular culture and contemporary media endures because it offers a rich, visually arresting style that continues to symbolize luxury, romance, and elegance. Its reinterpretation in modern contexts highlights how the aesthetics of the past continue to shape and inspire today's creative industries. Whether through film, fashion, or design, Rococo remains a timeless source of inspiration, adapting to new narratives while preserving its core elements of beauty, ornamentation, and playfulness. You have been listening to Rococo Art, Elegance and Ornamental Style in 18th Century France, written by High Event, narrated by Kara Miller.